In today's video, we're jumping back to our NHL offseason plan series. Today, we take a look at the 13th ranked team from the regular season, the Tampa Bay Lightning. It wasn't long ago they were winning Stanley Cup championships. Now they've been an ouster in the early part of the playoffs. Can they retain their captain? What moves can we expect? Is their window closing or can they keep it open? We'll discuss all that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're jumping back to our offseason plan series and taking a look at the Tampa Bay Lightning. It was another year of making the playoffs, another solid regular season, but there's a lot of questions facing this team. Some wonder if their championship window is closed. Is it closing? Obviously, lots of questions around their captain and his future, and we're going to dive into all that today and give you my thoughts on what I expect to happen. But first, before we get into the top questions facing the team, we're going to recap last year, take a look at the 23-24 campaign, both as a team and some of the top individual performances. We're going to take a look then at some of the changes we've already seen, look at their cap situation, expiring contracts, and the draft and everything that's going to be facing them this offseason, including those top questions that they need to find answers to. And we'll see what we can come up with here as we analyze this team. So let's first start by recapping the 23-24 regular season here for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Like I said, they were 13th in the league. They finished with a record of 45-29-8 for 98 points. Ended up losing in the first round of the playoffs after doing battle with the Florida Panthers, their state rivals, who's made it to the Stanley Cup final now the past two seasons. Of course, we saw it wasn't that long ago when the Lightning were the team going to the finals and winning back-to-back championships. That state of Florida has had a lot of success amongst those two teams here in recent years, that's for sure. And the goals scored category, they were fifth in the league, which is really good, 288 goals. They allowed 267, which is 22nd. Now, that's a far cry from when they were winning championships. Certainly, their D-core has changed over the past couple of years, and it's not quite as strong as it used to be, or at least it wasn't this past year. And Andrei Vasilevsky, of course, missed the first part of the year due to a back surgery, and he had his moments where he looked to be himself this year, but overall, not quite as good as normal for Vasilevsky, for sure. And at the end of the day, I wouldn't say he had a bad year. Just wasn't the same quite caliber as when they were winning the Stanley Cup. And obviously, he's a big role in whether or not they will be able to keep this cup window open or not. Special teams were both really good as well. They had the top power play in the NHL, 28.6%, and the penalty kill was fifth in the league, 83.3. So special teams were phenomenal. Goals for were great. The Achilles heel here on this team certainly appeared to be the fact that at even strength especially, they had a hard time keeping the puck out of the net, and they just gave up too many goals. Like I said, because of the cap and because of all the winning and success they've had to subtract from their D-core in recent years, and obviously that's played a role for sure. Now, looking at their top individual performers, Nikita Kucherov had a historically strong season. Kuch put up 144 points, including 100 assists. He will obviously be right up there for the Hart Trophy. They haven't announced the Hart Trophy winner as of the recording of this video, but I suspect he'll either be first or second. Nathan MacKinnon had an equally impressive historic season as well. So the two of them are going head-to-head, it seemed like all the time, keeping up with each other. Even Connor McDavid, who had a slow start and is, by many viewed upon being the most skilled player in the world, didn't quite keep up to these guys. Kucherov, at his moments, has been the best player in the world, too. And you could say the same with McKinnon. They've all had their moments where you could make the argument that they deserve that title and recognition. But Kucherov, amazing season, 144 points. Braden Point, another real solid campaign, 90 points. Captain Steven Stamkos in a contract year, nonetheless, 40 goals, 41 assists for 81 points. You can't beat that. I mean, at his age, to be putting up 40-goal seasons is pretty incredible. Victor Hedman, again, he's, not getting any younger either, and he still put up a really solid 76-point campaign. Brandon Hagel, with his best season to date, putting up 75 points as well. So certainly some really, really good individual performances. Now, of course, you might be able to argue that maybe some of the depth players, between your bottom six, your bottom pair D, and maybe they weren't quite as strong as they need to be, or the backup goaltending perhaps. But overall, this team was really, really good. Lots to like. As far as changes we saw throughout the course of the year, there really wasn't a lot. They found a way to move Zach Bogosian because it was after training camp in the early part of the season. It became apparent that he wasn't going to be a regular in their top 6D. So they basically did him a favor. He could have stayed there and been like a 7-8 guy. But they moved him to Minnesota for a 7th rounder, give him more of a chance to play. And of course, he has, I believe he spends a lot of time in that area as well in the offseason. So it wasn't really a major lifestyle adjustment for him that way. And then other than that, they added at the deadline. They added Anthony Duclair and Matt Dumba, while giving up only a few picks. They gave up a 5th rounder to get Dumba and a 3rd and a prospect to get Duclair. Both guys fit relatively well, had decent runs with them to finish out the campaign. And then another change we've seen, which is, I guess I'm not really sure what season to call it. Really, it's technically a part of the offseason, but it's already happened, is they traded for Ryan McDonagh, which caught everybody off guard. May 21st is not a time when you typically see a significant trade. Sometimes you'll see something minor, a couple of prospects changing organizations for a fresh start, or, maybe a depth player gets moved for a late round pick, something minor. Sometimes you see in May. Obviously, some teams are, half the league are done, right? And they're in their offseason mode. And then the Lightning, of course, were eliminated in the first round by the Panthers, so they were done. And they get Ryan McDonagh for a 4th round pick. Get McDonagh with a 4th round pick for a 2nd and a 7th. I mean, McDonagh was a huge part of their blue line, and really they've never really filled the void when he left. But now you throw in McDonagh with Victor Hedman, with Mikhail Sergachev, with Eric Chernak. Now that you've got a really solid top 4 again. So, to me, McDonagh can still play, can still contribute, can still be really, really good defensively. So I think that's a big move for them, and they absorbed his whole contract. There was no retention from Nashville. So at the end of the day, Nashville was kind of doing him a favor as well, because at the end of season exit meetings, he talked to Barry Trotz and just said, he wouldn't mind moving on and getting back to a contender, and if he can get to anyway he can get back to Tampa, he'd love it, and they made it happen. So that's a really good move for Julian Breezeball. The only thing it does is it really squeezes the cap space, which we'll transition into next year, because right now they've got 18 contracts out of a maximum of 23 on their roster for next season, and they only have $5.3 million left. Now, they also are not going to have, at least as of right now, that big LTIR cushion. They've had different contracts over the years, the latest one being like Brent Seabrook, that they give them an ability to spend above the cap. Unless they go out and they trade for another one, then that's not going to be an option this year. And there's not a lot of those contracts around the league like there once was. There are some, though, for sure. But we'll see. I mean, $5.3 million, and you have to fill, you're looking at least anywhere from 3 to 5 roster spots. That's not a lot of money. And we'll get into now who needs contracts. On the RFA side, nothing significant. They have Logan Brown. He basically missed the entire campaign. He was placed on long-term injury reserve on October 9th. Of course, he doesn't really make a lot. Small contracts, so didn't play a huge role in really their ability to navigate the cap. But, Logan Brown, I don't expect to be back. I don't imagine he'll be given a qualified offer. On the UFA side, there's lots of players, including Captain Steven Stamkos, which tops that list for sure, which we'll talk about here. You got Anthony Duclair, Tyler Mott, Austin Watson, Matt Dumba, Cal DeHaan, Hayden Fleury, Philippe Myers, and Alex Barré-Boulet. Now, most of these guys for sure are not going to be back. I think we can say with certainty that Barré-Boulet, Myers, Fleury, maybe not Fleury, most likely Fleury, Dumba, probably Watson, are all gone for sure. I think Duclair likely isn't back. Not that there wasn't interest. I think there would be. I just don't know how they can get him squeezed in here. Because Stamkos, by far, is your top, issue here. Now, is Steven Stamkos going to sign for $5 million? If he does, he'll eat up all the remaining available cap space. and you still have to sign a few more players. I mean, at the end of the day, I still think it's likely that we might see a cost-cutting move. So we'll see. But what are the top questions facing the franchise? Well, first up, you get the draft coming up, which for them is going to be light. They've already traded picks that they have rounds 1 through 4. They picked up an Oilers 4th-round pick. Then they have a 5th-rounder, a 6th-rounder, and 2 7ths. So the first 4 rounds, there's nothing going on for Tampa. They've only got 4 picks total. So I guess one of the questions is, can they find a way to make a cost-cutting move, because they could use a little bit of cap flexibility while getting a first-round pick back to get a top prospect out of this draft? And that's going to be an interesting question, because you look around at this roster, and the question really becomes, who would you move? Some thought with McDonough coming back, would they consider moving another defenseman? Like, well, they've kind of acknowledged that their D haven't been the same and haven't been deep enough since he's been gone. So, you're going to move Chernak, then you've got pretty much like you've got all lefties. Like, you need a right-handed defenseman there. So I don't see that being an option. Goaltending-wise, I mean, you got Vasilevsky, Jonas Johansson. Jonas Johansson was, barely adequate. He's not going to do much for you. I mean, from a cost-cutting move, who would that be? I know Tanner Jeannot is a name that you see a lot. He's not making a ton of money, but he is making, I think it's over $2 million. It hasn't worked out. They gave up a lot of picks to get him out of Nashville, and he's the combination of injuries, suspensions, and there are even times in the playoffs, which is why he was brought in, where he was healthy scratched. So I don't see Tanner Jeannot having a long-term future there in Tampa. I do think he's a player they'd like to move. I think there will be interest given what he did before in Nashville, more so. So I think it makes most sense that he would be the main cost-cutting move. I mean, you might be able to take his money and maybe sign 2 players for around $1 million each or something like that, right? So if Stamkos, let's just say he takes $5 million, I don't know that he would, but let's just say that he signs for $5 million, and then you move Jeannot, and you can get 2 more players signed. Let's just say, for example, Tyler Mott and, I don't know, another comparable guy, a couple of forwards anyway, at $1 million each. Use up the Jeannot money, and then now you're at a 21-player roster. So, I mean, that could be as simple as it gets. I've seen some wonder about Anthony Cirelli. I don't know that they would want to move Cirelli. He signed long-term. He's a super important piece to their team there. And I don't know that they're going to want to move Cirelli to keep an older player. As much as I love Stamkos, Cirelli's got a lot more years left than Stamkos, and I just don't know that that's a move they want to make. I think long-term that would really hurt. Now, it would hurt to lose Stamkos too, don't get me wrong, so I don't know how they're going to handle that, but I think Tanner Jeannot would be the primary player that you see move to get some cap space. After that, it's really difficult figuring out who it could be, and I can't help but wonder if maybe Cirelli's that guy, but I don't know that they need to go any deeper than that. Maybe they figure out something else to get some space, but like bringing in an LTIR contract. I don't know. Maybe Jeannot was moved for a contract that can go through that. We'll have to see, but to me, Jeannot won't be in Tampa long. So obviously, like I said, the big question though is, will Stamkos be back? The bottom line here is we don't know what he wants for a contract. That hasn't really leaked out. I mean, we know he wants to stay. He's made it publicly known at the beginning of the season. He was really frustrated that there was no talks, and he didn't like the idea that the Lightning basically, without saying it, he basically saying, listen, like, you looked after all these other guys. I've been your captain. I've done a lot for this franchise. Been here my whole career. And now you're telling me we got to wait till the end of the season to even talk about it. But of course, since then, Brisebois has made comments that they certainly want to bring him back. They know what he can do, but he's also acknowledged that because he's playing at such a high level, that he's going to be, able to command a good amount of money, and that might be a problem for them. So it's really unclear. I mean, I think both sides want to make it work. I have no doubt, but if I had to say, I'd say personally right now, I'd say 75-25 that Stamkos returns, with the 75% being that he does come back. If he signed for $5 million, like I said, and then you got Jeannot's money moved out and you can use that to sign a couple of players, maybe that's all they need to do. They also need to work out an extension this year for Victor Hedman. He's turning 30. Well, he's 33, turning 34, making $7.8 million. Just put up 76 points. Wants to finish his career there. I think him and Stamkos have been best buddies and great teammates for a long time, winning championships and having lots of success. They would both like to probably sign comparable contracts for term to kind of finish things out there. I think that would probably be a very much a dream scenario for both of them. So I wouldn't be shocked if they get something that's somewhat, I'm not sure about the money, but the term kind of matching. So, do they both take a little bit of a discount? That's going to be the big question. Because like I said, you can make an argument for a guy like Stamkos scoring 40 goals that $6.5, $7 million is a discount, let alone 5, right? So it's just really complicated to see how they're going to do this. But extending Hedman, figuring out keeping Stamkos is by far your biggest questions. I think they can do that by moving Tanner Jeannot. Unless they want to make some other moves, I don't know. Like I said, maybe Cirelli comes into play, but I'd have a hard time seeing that. I think they value him too much to do that. So we will see what they do. Let me know your thoughts. Will Stamkos return to Tampa? What does the contract look like? And what do the Lightning need to do to make sure they can do that while filling out the rest of their roster? Let me know your thoughts on their expectations for the offseason down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.